He redefined music with the College Dropout and collected 24 Grammys, inventing sounds the industry had never heard. Then everything changed. Kanye West's path from chart domination to public breakdown shattered the line between genius and madness. Today, his every move sparks debate, from stunning creative highs to relationships torn apart and dangerous controversies. What pushes an innovator to the edge, and could it all be part of the same mind? The answer starts with Kanye in the studio, chasing perfection and rewriting his own rules. In 2004, Kanye West's first album, The College Dropout, hit store shelves with a sound that instantly separated him from every other rapper and producer in the game. The track's pulsed with sped-up soul vocals, what producers called chipmunk soul, chopped and pitched until Otis Redding and Chaka Khan sounded like ghosts from another era. Kanye was not just sampling, he was bending time, turning old records into something raw and new. The lead single, Through the Wire, was recorded with his jaw wired shut after a near-fatal car accident. He rapped through clenched teeth, his voice muffled but determined, flipping Chaka Khan's Through the Fire into a hook that stuck in listeners' heads. That risk paid off. The song climbed the Billboard charts, and Kanye's story, this hungry, wounded newcomer, spread through the industry. In the studio, Kanye obsessed over every detail. He would sit for hours with his Akai MPC, slicing up soul records, layering drums, and refusing to settle for a half-finished beat. No ID, his early mentor from Chicago, remembered Kanye's drive. He said Kanye would call at 2 a.m. to play a new loop because he knew he had something different. That hunger for perfection defined the album's sound. Tracks like Spaceship and Family Business blended gospel, soul, and streetwise lyrics, creating a style that felt both familiar and revolutionary. The College Dropout was not just a hit, it was a statement. At the 2005 Grammy Awards, Kanye took home Best Rap Album, Best Rap Song for Jesus Walks, and Best R&B Song for Alicia Keys' You Don't Know My Name, which he produced. He stood on stage, famously saying everybody wanted to know what he would do if he did not win. He added, "I guess we will never know." The industry was watching, and so were the fans. By the end of 2005, the album had gone triple platinum, and Kanye was already pushing boundaries again, working with John Bryan on Late Registration to add lush orchestration to his signature sound. That early run set the tone for everything that followed. Kanye's willingness to break rules, to risk ridicule for a new sound, earned him both respect and controversy. The Chipmunk Soul era did not just launch his career, it changed the sound of hip-hop. Producers and rappers across the country scrambled to imitate the pitched-up samples and layered drums. But only Kanye seemed able to twist nostalgia into something bold and unpredictable, setting the stage for the stylistic leaps in public battles that would define his next chapters. Graduation arrived in September 2007 with a sound built for stadiums, not just headphones. Kanye swapped out warm soul samples for glossy synthesizers and hard-hitting drums, drawing inspiration from Daft Punk, U2, and arena rock. The lead single, Stronger, flipped a Daft Punk hook into a digital anthem and shot straight to #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. The album release became a cultural event, thanks in part to the now legendary sales showdown with 50 Cent. Both artists dropped albums on the same day, but it was Kanye who came out on top, selling 957,000 copies in the first week, outselling 50 Cent's Curtis by over 250,000. That victory cemented hip-hop's shift from street to spectacle, and Graduation's neon soundtrack soon echoed from festival main stages to sports arenas worldwide. Behind the scenes, Kanye's studio team expanded. DJ Tump brought Southern bounce to Can't Tell Me Nothing, while engineer Anthony Kilhofer helped sculpt the layered synths and booming kicks. Every detail was dialed in for maximum impact. Kanye pushed collaborators to experiment, blending electronic textures with pop hooks and global influences. The result was an album that felt larger than life, with tracks like Flashing Lights and Good Life spinning out into radio, clubs, and commercials. Critics took notice. Rolling Stone called Graduation the most adventurous hip-hop album of the year, and Pitchfork praised its arena-sized ambition. Kanye's appetite for reinvention did not slow down. By 2010, he was holed up in Hawaii with a hand-picked crew of producers like Mike Dean, Jeff Basker, and No ID, crafting My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. These marathon sessions ran day and night, with dozens of musicians shuttling in and out. The sound was maximalist, with soaring strings, distorted guitars, choirs, and layers of samples stacked on top of each other. On Runaway, Kanye set a 9-minute piano riff against a wall of auto-tuned vocals and crashing drums, turning vulnerability into spectacle. The album drew near universal acclaim. Pitchfork named it the best album of the decade, and it landed at or near the top of countless year-end and all-time lists. For many, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy was not just a comeback, it was proof that Kanye could reshape the sound of a generation, again and again. During this era, Kanye's music filled stadiums, dominated charts, and set new standards for what hip-hop could be. His willingness to blow up his own formula, first with Graduation's electronic polish, then with the maximalist sprawl of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, showed a restless creativity that kept fans, critics, and rivals guessing. Every reinvention brought new collaborators, new sounds, and a new sense of scale. The only constant was Kanye's refusal to stand still. In June 2013, Kanye West released Yeezus, an album that shattered expectations and split the music world in two. Gone were the lush strings and layered samples. Instead, the sound was stripped down to the bone, industrial, abrasive, and raw. Rick Rubin, brought in just weeks before release, helped Kanye tear away anything extra. The result was a record that hit like a punch, distorted synths, rattling drums, and lyrics that veered from defiant to confessional. Tracks like Black Skinhead and New Slaves traded radio hooks for jarring energy, drawing from Chicago drill, punk, and even minimalist art. The beats were sparse, but every sound felt like it had been engineered to provoke a reaction. Kanye called Yeezus a protest in music, and the rollout matched the attitude. Instead of a traditional marketing campaign, he projected the New Slaves video onto buildings in cities around the world. There were no radio singles, no album cover, just a clear CD case with a strip of red tape. The message was simple, the music spoke for itself. Critics either praised it as visionary or dismissed it as self-indulgent, but nobody could ignore it. Yeezus debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, and it forced the rest of the industry to take notice. Suddenly, minimalism was in, and artists from Drake to Travis Scott chased the stark, aggressive sound Kanye had just made mainstream. 3 years later, The Life of Pablo landed in February 2016, but this time, the rules changed again. Kanye launched the album with a listening party at Madison Square Garden, streamed live to millions. The music itself felt restless. Gospel choirs collided with trap beats, soul samples with auto-tune confessions. But the real experiment came after release. For the first time in major label history, Kanye treated the album like software, updating tracks in real time on streaming platforms. He tweaked vocals, swapped out features, and even changed song titles. Fans woke up to find new verses on Wolves or a tighter mix on Famous. This streaming-first approach rewrote how albums could live online. The Life of Pablo debuted at #1 on the strength of streams alone, a first for the Billboard charts. Other artists watched closely, realizing they could keep their music evolving after release. Kanye wasn't just making records anymore, he was engineering the future of how music was created, delivered, and experienced. With Yeezus and The Life of Pablo, he proved that risk and reinvention weren't just part of his process, they were the process itself. On November 10th, 2007, Kanye West's world collapsed. His mother, Donda West, died at 58 the day after undergoing cosmetic surgery in Los Angeles. The official coroner's report listed heart disease and multiple post-operative complications as the cause. Donda had been Kanye's anchor, a former English professor, his manager, and the person who championed his ambition from the start. Her passing was not just a private loss, it was a public rupture. Tour dates were canceled. Kanye withdrew from the spotlight, skipping interviews and industry events. Friends described him as unreachable, holed up in studios, barely speaking to anyone. The energy that once fueled marathon recording sessions now turned inward. Donda's influence ran deep. She had raised Kanye as a single mother, guiding him through Chicago's South Shore and encouraging every creative risk. Losing her meant losing a guiding voice. In the months that followed, Kanye's music shifted. Lyrics hinted at emptiness and regret. Studio logs from that winter show late-night sessions with few visitors, just Kanye, a piano, and grief that seeped into every note. He jotted fragments in notebooks, sometimes returning to the same line for hours. The pain did not fade. Instead, it hardened into isolation. Kanye's circle grew smaller. Even collaborators struggled to reach him, as if he was building walls no one could scale. The man who once thrived on chaos and collaboration now seemed lost in silence, searching for meaning in the echo left behind by his mother's absence. Kanye West married Kim Kardashian in a lavish ceremony in Florence, Italy, in May 2014. The event drew headlines worldwide, but for Kanye, it represented something deeper, a chance to build the kind of family he had always wanted. Their first child, North, had arrived the year before, in June 2013. Saint followed in December 2015, then Chicago in January 2018 via surrogate, and finally Psalm in May 2019. Each milestone brought a new layer of responsibility and, for a time, a sense of calm that had been missing since his mother's passing. In interviews, Kanye spoke openly about how fatherhood changed him. He told Vogue in 2015 that Kim grounds him. The couple's home life became a fixture in pop culture, with cameras capturing birthday parties, school runs, and quiet moments that offered a glimpse behind the headlines. Kanye, once defined by late-night studio sessions and restless ambition, now talked about designing kids' clothes and reading bedtime stories. The public saw a softer side, a husband and father determined to create stability for his children. During these years, the West projected an image of unity. Family photos filled Instagram feeds, and Kanye's lyrics turned more reflective. He rapped about faith, loyalty, and the promise of legacy. For a while, the chaos faded into the background, replaced by a new narrative: Kanye West, family man. The world watched as he tried to balance creativity with commitment, building a life that seemed, at least on the surface, to offer peace. September 13, 2009. The MTV Video Music Awards were in full swing when Taylor Swift's name was called for Best Female Video. As she began her acceptance speech, Kanye West walked onto the stage, microphone in hand. Without warning, he interrupted, declaring that he was really happy for her, that he would let her finish, but that Beyoncé had one of the best videos of all time. The crowd froze, some booed, others gasped. Swift stood silent, clutching her award, while cameras cut to Beyoncé in the audience, visibly stunned. Security logs later recorded frantic radio chatter backstage, with staff unsure if Kanye would need to be escorted out. Producers cut his microphone and rushed to the next segment, but the damage was done. The moment played out live to millions, instantly flooding social media. Within hours, memes and hashtags exploded, dividing fans. Some called Kanye a truth teller, others labeled him disrespectful. The next day, Kanye posted an apology on Twitter, admitting he was out of line. Taylor Swift, for her part, kept quiet at first, but the incident followed her for years. On Reddit and Instagram, debates raged. Was Kanye exposing industry bias or just crashing someone else's moment? That night, the world saw a new side of Kanye West, unpredictable and unfiltered, willing to risk his reputation on live television. The VMA outburst did not just spark headlines. It cracked open a pattern of public unpredictability that would come to define the next decade of his career. October 11, 2018. The doors of the Oval Office swung open, and Kanye West walked in wearing a red MAGA hat, ready to meet President Donald Trump. Cameras rolled as he launched into a rambling, unscripted monologue, praising Trump and calling the hat his Superman cape. The meeting was broadcast across every major network, clips flooding social media within minutes. For some, it was a surreal spectacle, for others, a breaking point. Kanye's embrace of Trump sent shockwaves through the hip-hop world. Artists like T.I. and Snoop Dogg posted blunt responses online, accusing Kanye of betrayal. Even longtime collaborators distanced themselves, unsure how to respond to his sudden political turn. Just months earlier, in May 2018, Kanye had appeared at TMZ headquarters and delivered another headline-grabbing moment. When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice, he said, staring straight into the camera. The backlash was instant and ferocious. #cancel, Kanye trended on Instagram and Twitter. Black cultural critics, fellow musicians, and former fans denounced him for what they saw as reckless ignorance. In the days that followed, media outlets dissected every word, while Reddit threads exploded with arguments, some defending his right to speak, others demanding accountability. These moments did not just attract criticism, they deepened the divide around Kanye. His political statements and controversial remarks pushed away old allies and left even his most loyal supporters questioning his judgment. The lines were drawn sharper than ever, and Kanye seemed to stand alone at the center of the storm. November 21st, 2016, paramedics rushed Kanye West from his trainer's house in Los Angeles to UCLA Medical Center after a 911 call described a psychiatric emergency. For days leading up to that moment, Kanye has spiraled through a haze of sleepless nights and frantic tour stops, launching into rants about Jay-Z, Beyonce, and the music industry from his floating stage. On November 19th, he abruptly ended a Sacramento show after just 3 songs, unleashing a barrage of grievances before storming off. The next day, the remaining St. Pablo tour dates were canceled. Hospital staff placed Kanye under observation for more than a week. Official reports cited temporary psychosis brought on by sleep deprivation and dehydration. But headlines told a different story. News outlets dissected every rumor, from business disputes with Jay-Z over Tidal streaming profits to whispers of betrayal and paranoia. Social media lit up with hashtags, #PrayForKanye and #KanyeBreakdown, splitting fans and critics. Some saw a man pushed to the edge by fame and pressure. Others accused him of publicity seeking. The fallout was immediate and wide-reaching. Jay-Z, once a mentor and collaborator, distanced himself publicly. In December 2017, Jay-Z referenced the rift in his song Kill Jay-Z, calling out Kanye's behavior without naming him directly. The split sent shockwaves through hip-hop circles. Meanwhile, business partners grew wary. Media outlets ran analytics on trending hashtags, tracking the surge in negative sentiment. For many, the 2016 breakdown drew a line in the sand, forcing fans, friends, and industry insiders to choose sides. The world watched as alliances fractured and the conversation around Kanye shifted from music to mental health, marking a new era defined by uncertainty and division. In 2013, Kanye West stepped into a new arena, fashion. The Yeezy brand launched that year, starting with a partnership with Adidas that would soon rewrite the rules of sneaker culture and celebrity business. By 2015, the world's eyes were on Paris Fashion Week as Kanye unveiled the first Yeezy season collection. The runway show was a spectacle with models in earth-toned bodysuits, minimalist sneakers, and oversized silhouettes. Critics, buyers, and celebrities packed the front row, and within hours, social media buzzed with images of the new Yeezy Boost 350. The sneaker's release sparked lines around city blocks, and it crashed Adidas's website. Resale prices soared, and sneaker blogs called it a turning point, not just a musician dabbling in fashion, but a designer with real influence. Kanye's deal with Adidas was unprecedented. Instead of a typical endorsement, he secured royalty rights and creative control. Forbes reported in 2019 that Yeezy's annual revenue had reached $1.5 billion, with Kanye earning an estimated 15% on wholesale, far higher than industry norms. By 2020, Forbes officially recognized him as a billionaire, valuing his net worth at over $1.3 billion, thanks in large part to Yeezy's explosive growth. The magazine called him one of the most influential designers in the industry and compared Yeezy's impact to the Air Jordan phenomenon of the 1980s. The Yeezy empire did not stop at sneakers. Kanye expanded into apparel, accessories, and even architecture, sketching out futuristic housing prototypes and teasing new projects on Instagram. Every move felt like a headline. Collaborations with Gap and high-profile partnerships kept the brand in constant rotation on fashion blogs and business pages. Financial journalists tracked the numbers, noting that by 2020, Yeezy's brand valuation had climbed to nearly $3 billion. For Adidas, the partnership was a windfall, driving a younger global audience to the brand and boosting quarterly earnings. For Kanye, it was proof he could dominate not just music, but the world of business and design. The numbers, the headlines, and the runway moments all pointed to one thing: Kanye West had built an empire that stretched far beyond beats and rhymes. Lines once wrapped around city blocks for the latest Yeezy sneakers, with fans camping out overnight and bots crashing websites within seconds of a drop. The Yeezy Boost 350, first released in 2015, became a symbol of hype culture. Pairs that retailed for $220 sometimes flipped for over $1,000 on StockX or GOAT. Resale forums tracked every colorway, and limited runs only drove demand higher. Adidas leaned into the frenzy, launching each release with countdowns and cryptic teasers, while Kanye teased unreleased designs on Instagram. Analysts compared the phenomenon to the Air Jordan boom of the 1980s, but with a twist, Yeezy's scarcity was engineered, feeding a cycle of anticipation and instant sellouts. By 2021, Yeezy sales reportedly topped $1.7 billion annually, accounting for nearly 8% of Adidas's overall revenue. Financial reports credited the partnership with attracting a new, younger audience to the brand. But the setup was fragile. The business model relied on Kanye's star power and unpredictability, qualities that once fueled growth, but that also posed a risk. In October 2022, Adidas announced it was ending the Yeezy partnership in response to a series of anti-Semitic remarks made by Kanye. The statement landed like a shockwave, with Adidas forecasting a $246 million loss for the year and retailers scrambling to pull Yeezy stock from shelves. Overnight, the resale market exploded with speculation. Some pairs doubled in price, while others plummeted as buyers questioned the brand's future. Industry insiders debated whether Yeezy could survive without Adidas's global distribution and manufacturing muscle. For Kanye, the collapse wiped out the bulk of his fortune. Forbes recalculated his net worth from $1.5 billion to around $400 million, almost entirely due to the loss of the Adidas deal. Reports surfaced of canceled orders, frozen accounts, and legal battles over unsold inventory. The sneaker world, once shaped by Kanye's vision, now faced a void. Business analysts pointed to the Yeezy-Adidas breakup as a textbook case of volatility, how a brand built on personality and scarcity could unravel in a single news cycle, leaving both sides scrambling for answers. In April 2018, Kanye West posted a tweet that said, "I am not even going to lie to you guys. I am off my meds." The message landed in the middle of a storm, fans, journalists, and fellow artists all weighing in on what it meant. Kanye had already spoken publicly about his mental health, but this was the first time he directly addressed his decision to stop taking prescribed medication. The tweet was quickly picked apart, with some supporters praising his honesty and others expressing concern about what might come next. Screenshots circulated across Reddit and Instagram, fueling debates about whether medication dulled his creativity or protected his well-being. Just weeks later, Kanye doubled down in interviews. He told TMZ that these pills that they want me to take, 3 of a day, I take 1 a week, maybe 2 a week. He explained his reasoning in blunt terms. Medication made him feel less like himself. If I was on medication, I could not have made Watch the Throne, he insisted, referencing his acclaimed 2011 album with Jay-Z. To some, it sounded like a manifesto for creative freedom. To others, a warning sign that the pressures of fame and expectation were taking a toll. Kanye's public statements about medication opened up a wider conversation. Mental health advocates pointed out that stopping medication without medical supervision can be risky, especially for people diagnosed with bipolar disorder. At the same time, fans on social media shared stories of their own struggles, using Kanye's tweet as a jumping-off point for debates about the balance between treatment and identity. Music journalists traced the timeline, noting how his most experimental projects often coincided with periods when he said he was off medication. Some cited his 2018 album Ye, with lyrics that said, "That's my superpower, ain't no disability," as evidence that Kanye saw his diagnosis as both a burden and a source of inspiration. The discussion was not limited to fans and critics. Medical experts were drawn into the debate, asked to weigh in on national news segments and podcasts. They cautioned against using Kanye's experience as a blueprint, emphasizing that what works for one person might be dangerous for another. Still, the impact of his words was clear. By speaking candidly about his choices, Kanye forced a conversation about mental health, stigma, and the complicated relationship artists often have with their own minds. His tweets and interviews became a kind of public diary, offering glimpses into the decisions that shaped both his RT and his life. Dr. K. Redfield Jamison, one of the world's leading experts on mood disorders, has spent her career studying the link between bipolar disorder and creativity. In her research, she has found that people living with bipolar are overrepresented in creative fields, especially music, writing, and art. A Swedish study of more than 300,000 people found those diagnosed with bipolar disorder were up to 2.5 times more likely to work in artistic professions. Jamison herself lives with bipolar and describes how hypomanic states can bring a surge of energy, focus, and ideas, sometimes fueling extraordinary bursts of creativity. But she also cautions that untreated mania can spiral into chaos, disrupting lives and relationships. For artists like Kanye West, the balance between creative drive and mental health is complicated. He has spoken publicly about his bipolar diagnosis and has called it his superpower, and he has credited periods of heightened energy for some of his most ambitious projects. He has also described how medication, while stabilizing his mood, can blunt the edge that makes his music feel alive. This tension is not unique to him. Peer-reviewed studies show that while hypomania can boost divergent thinking and originality, full-blown mania often leads to poor decision-making, paranoia, and burnout. In the world of pop culture, the line between inspiration and instability can get blurry, especially when success depends on pushing boundaries and taking risks. Ethical guidelines for discussing public figures' mental health are clear. Diagnosis belongs to doctors, not the court of public opinion. Still, the facts are hard to ignore. Kanye West's most public episodes, his 2016 hospitalization, erratic interviews, and polarizing social media posts often follow periods of sleep deprivation, a known trigger for manic episodes. Clinical data shows that people with bipolar disorder average just 3 or 4 hours of sleep during mania, and that sleep loss alone can bring on symptoms in almost 3/4 of cases. For some, like Kanye, the resulting energy gets poured into music, fashion, or business. For others, the cost is hospitalization, broken relationships, or lost opportunities. Fans and critics often ask where to draw the line between explanation and accountability. Mental health can help explain impulsive decisions, but it does not erase the harm caused by reckless words or actions. Experts like Jameson urge compassion without excusing behavior. They remind us that treatment works. Up to 80% of people with bipolar disorder see improvement with the right support. But they also warn against romanticizing the illness. The stereotype of the mad genius is seductive, but it overlooks the pain and instability that come with the territory. For Kanye West, the question is not just about diagnosis, but about the responsibility that comes with influence. His story forces a reckoning, not only with creativity and fame, but with the ethics of how we talk about mental health in the spotlight. Today, Kanye West's influence extends beyond music. His every word triggers global headlines and sparks fierce debate about the boundaries of creativity, responsibility, and mental health. As social media amplifies both innovation and outrage, the world watches not just for the next song, but the next headline. The line between icon and outcast grows thinner each year. Genius or not, one fact remains. Culture still bends to Ye's every move. What's your take? Let's discuss below.